Hi there. Welcome back to Straight Talk for Mental Health. I'm here with Janice D'Souza. She's our associate therapist at KG and Associates. So welcome back, Janice. How are you?
Hi Karen, I'm doing well today. The weather's looking great as well, nice and sunny. How about you?
I know it makes such a difference, even when it's cold, to see the sunshine. But I know, the days are continuing to get shorter for the next couple of weeks. I honestly can't believe it's December. I mean, I'm still writing November on all of my notes.
I
Somehow it
know
just all crept up on us, didn't it?
it absolutely did. I feel like every year I'm like, wow, the year went by so quick. And I just keep saying it every single year. And before you know it, it's like January 1st.
I know, exactly. It's here. So, listen, I know we just recently started back into our podcast. I'm so thrilled for that. And I know that you're leaving for the most of the month of December. So, this is our last, even though it's our third, it's also our last. And I know in the new year we'll be putting a lot more on this and having them more frequent. But today is third and last of the year. So, what I wanted to talk to you about today is your work with students and how we are helping people look at how to take advantage of the end of the year and the beginning of a new year. So, I want to hear let's just open it up and talk about New Year's resolutions. I feel like that's such a big term in some ways. What do you think about resolutions?
Yeah, so personally for me, I know growing up, I used to be very big on making New Year's resolutions, and I would maybe pick like one or two items, whether that was like eating healthier or working out. And I remember like towards the end of every year, everyone would talk about it. Like everyone would kind of compare New Year's resolutions and like say like what meant more to which person. And I remember getting into like New Year, the first few weeks, I was so focused on like, yes, let me do this. Like, I'll change my eating habits, I'll work out more. I placed a lot of pressure to meet that resolution.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll be completely honest, like, as we got into February, even March, it kind of, I dropped the ball on it and it just, I don't know what it was. It was almost like I placed all this emphasis on it in like January and then I kind of just dropped it. What are your thoughts on resolutions and New Year's?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's like we all go into it with good intentions and then it doesn't stick, right? So I feel like, this is what the name of this podcast is going to be, why resolutions don't work. So I think this is why I always hear this from the nutritionists we work with and the personal trainers we work with for our clients that the gyms are packed in January, right? Uh, I'm sure the same would go for things like Weight Watcher groups and Jenny
Yes.
Craig's, and it's like everybody signs on January, and then there's this huge drop off, sometimes even by February. And then
Mhm.
I think it's not only that it doesn't work, I think it actually makes us feel worse because it almost feels like we've let ourselves down. And
Yes.
I've noticed that too. So I want to talk about this because I think we have to figure this out. My personal idea is that there are two benchmark dates of the year. There's probably others, but for me and the work that I do and in my own life, the Tuesday after Labor Day and January 1st tend to be what I call the benchmark dates. And I do think that those are still good dates where we recontract with ourselves
Mhm.
because it's just those dates stand out. Even if you're not a student, somehow it's like the summer's over and the kids go back to school, whether you're one of the students or not. And I do think it's a recontracting time. But I think what often happens is that we get lost in our thoughts and we just make like commitments from our head rather than our heart, right?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of times I felt like I just had to make a resolution also because everyone was talking about it. And I would
Sure.
just find something where I was like, okay, to meet kind of like my own expectation or just the fact that like I'm gonna make this change. Whether like you said, that's after Labor's Day, because yes, after Labor's Day too feels like a restart.
Yeah.
And same with January 1st. So yeah, I definitely get that.
Yeah. And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it and listening to you, there's a third benchmark date I believe in. The third one is our birthday, right?
Oh
And I started this tradition a long time ago that if I'm celebrating mine or somebody else's birthday, I always say, what was your highlight of the year, like in the past year? And what do you want to look forward to in the next year? And I love taking stock with that. So at any of those benchmark dates, I feel like not so much from our head, but maybe from our heart, it's taking stock, right? This is similar to what we teach our clients about the 4-part DBT meditations, where there's that little check in with ourselves every day. I love doing that exercise. And what I think like the benefit of it is that we get off the treadmill because we're all so busy. But if we can
Mm-hmm.
take those couple of minutes to just observe ourselves or observe our life, it's so renewing, right? So this taking stock, and as you know, with the meditations, it's not a checklist. It's not, writing out. It's really
Mm-hmm.
from here because it has to mean more. Because if it, sometimes they say the longest foot in the world is between our head and our heart, right?
Yes.
Because if they're not aligned, then it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen, and then we feel worse. So this similar to what we do in the 4-part meditation, it's that taking stock of our
Mm-hmm.
year. Um, and so yeah, as 2022 is winding down, I think it's extremely helpful to get into a mindful place where we can look first of all at what we're proud of, because in our work we have to be able to look at it from both sides. We make the healthy self bigger and we heal the wounded self. So if we talk about the healthy self, where it's just like, yeah, like what did we actually pull off this year?
Right, absolutely. And I love that. And I love how you're going back to the DBT 4-part meditation, because that's actually one of my favorites in the work we do as well. Like you said, that mindfulness piece, which not only applies to our everyday lives, but even if I look back at this entire year as a whole for even myself, and I need to reflect back on something that I feel very proud of, something that's coming from my healthy self, I would say completing my master's after 3 whole years. Like, I know just getting into the program, a lot of times I felt like my wounded self was coming up because I had got rejected from a couple of schools initially, but it was that push to keep going. And I think this year, being at graduation and finally being up there, I was very proud of myself. And I think that's where that healthy self came out. And I was like, okay, like, this is a good year. Even coming out of COVID and everything, I was like, this is a good year. So that was something that really was important for me this year and really came from that healthy self. And
Yeah, I love that story. I had to try many times for the masters too. And I remember going, okay, what can I do? My marks are good. My volunteer experience was stellar. I'm like, and they're like, it's a lottery, just keep trying. So
mm-hmm.
I love that story. And think about how many times we hear about the healthy self imagery from graduation, right? And I know
Yes.
like our last 2 podcasts were for students and transitions to post-secondary, but how many times do we hear that our graduation image is what can feed the healthy self? So your story of persistence. So I guess if you were doing that part of your DBT meditation for the affirmation, would it be that it reminded you that you're a persistent person, or what would you say got you to that graduation?
Yes, that's exactly it. It's that persistence and not giving up. I think that's kind of what was very key for me. Just that piece of like not giving up and kind of like it wasn't like, okay, I got rejected once, twice, 3 times, let's just forget about it, Like it did hurt for sure. I think it did like take a little bit of a toll. There were many times where I'm like, is it worth it? Should I do it? But there was something inside that was like, this is my path. Um, and I wanted to do this. So just like keeping on trying, that persistency, never giving up was really what I would say like went really well for me and what I would take like with me.
Yeah, I love that story because, what we try to teach our clients is that idea of what do you really want, right?
Want. Yes.
What you want, what you really want. And it's so simple and complicated at the same time. But recognizing that this was your pathway and feeling kind of that calling or knowing you're on the right pathway, you must have had something within yourself that kind of confirmed for you that you were going in the right direction. It just took more
Yes.
attempts.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. For me, the highlight I would say was my skydive. Like, I love traveling, I love the adventures. I was thinking about this last night that really, like, I'm just so pumped up by the year I had traveling again. And I know I posted about this, but yeah, facing fears. I mean, like I
Mm-hmm.
said to somebody last night, if somebody had come to me, a year or two ago, and Karen, you're going to be skydiving, I'm like, no, thank you. And I loved how not only did I get out of the plane, I mean, I don't know if I would have if I wasn't attached to somebody, but but what I put to the test there was this ability to be mindful because otherwise my fears about that would have hijacked the whole experience. And not indulging the fear narrative and staying mindful and staying connected to my breath so I could be present actually allowed me to enjoy the whole experience more. And I can't tell you how like a profound effect that's had for me, and not only me personally but in the work that I'm doing, because I love it when I can put things to the test in my own
Mm-hmm.
life and then I have that personal experience with it that then just, I don't know, it just helps me inform our clients in a better way because I'm not just like talking theory. I'm saying, no, listen, like,
Yes.
not that it has to work for everybody the same it worked for me, but you just have that faith and trust in what we're teaching.
Hmm, definitely. I remember seeing your video of the skydiving and I was like, wow, you go, Karen. Like, I think that's still on my bucket list to do, facing that fear. But, that's amazing. Like, I'm really glad you did that.
Yeah, me too. I think it was, it was great. And, I proved so much to myself. And then I think I even got like I got so many zillion mother points from my daughter on that because she's like, I can't believe you did that. And it's almost, I said to somebody the other day, I said, God, I would have done this years ago if I knew it was going to increase my mother points. But I think Madeline has like a whole new level of respect for me that she may have not had before because I could do that. But okay, so that's part of taking stock because you're going to move persistence forward. You're going to take the
Hmm.
persistence of 2022 and you're going to take it into 2023, in whatever direction that needs to go. For me, I'm taking the strength, the pride of facing fears,
Hmm.
and the proof of how mindfulness works.
Yes.
So it's always about taking stock of that, but then how am I moving that forward? And so for me, it feels more like that deeper commitment at that more spiritual level rather than I'm going to, I don't know, I'm gonna base jump. I don't know, like what else,
Right.
what comes after skydiving. So it's not so much like this is what I have to do. It's that I want to be on the lookout for ways I can use the mindfulness moving forward. And for you, it might be how you're going to move persistence forward. And yeah, maybe that does help us identify specific go tos because
Hmm.
obviously, when we can identify concrete actions, the accountability goes up. But at a spiritual level, if we don't have it down here, then we can make all the lists in the world, but it won't matter, right? Because it's like they're just lists that I'm not really connected to.
Yes, no, I like that. Like tuning in with our hearts and then letting that guide kind of like whether we, want to put into words a specific resolution, but it's not just like you said, a list of things we want to do. It's kind of like being guided by our heart and then kind of fulfilling those things that we want to do for the new year.
Yeah. Obviously, part of taking stock is also about what lessons we learned.
Yes.
So this whole idea of like where we had hardship or pain or conflict or loss or trauma. I mean, obviously it's, you know, a lot of people are really still struggling out there, sometimes
Hmm.
even increased levels with how the world is right now and economics and coming out of the COVID and kind of the new invitations for in-person, situations and what that meant for everybody. So taking stock is also about finding that peaceful place to sit with our pain where we don't add in shame or blame. Like, how do we ground our pain so that we can hear what the meanings were of things? What does that mean to you or for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I like once again something personal for me from this past year, and I think it really ties in with my healthy self. There are these aspects of me, just growing up, even sometimes like up until today, I think my wound itself sometimes acts from a place of that perfectionism and feeling like I'm not doing enough. Even if I'm like doing something every single day, there are times where I feel lost and I'm like, am I doing enough? Like, am I where I want to be? And I really faced a little bit of this transition post graduating and then kind of before getting on with KG and Associates and our business growing because I really felt like I was like, I'm out of school. Now what? Like, I just had school and work the past few years that I was like, I'm busy. I'm doing everything I need to. And then kind of taking a bit of that pause where I was just navigating changes and what do I want for my goals. A little bit of that perfectionism came up and I was feeling a little bit like I'm not doing enough. I just graduated, but now what? What was the point of graduating if I'm not getting to where I want? What is it? So I did feel very lost and I did see that wound itself kind of coming up for me. But I think what really worked was that healthy self working alongside the wound itself. And that's something that even with the work we do, I definitely like see people making those connections as well,
Yeah.
where they're mindful about, what was really hard for them in this past year or in this past day, but how did my healthy self kind of come in and help bring me out of that? So I really saw both of those selves working together. And that was what kind of stood out for me this year, around that piece of like, what was struggles for me, but also where was that empowerment for me? What got me like where I am today?
Yeah, I think the shame wound, I don't know if you'd agree with this or not, is almost like the biggest or most common wound we see. And whether people have experienced profound trauma or loss or shaming, direct shaming, we are so easily walking around with this not good enoughness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most common one we see. So I'm interested in hearing how that played out for you this year, and it kind of gets activated more easily, I guess, during these transitional times in our life, where things are kind of up for grabs. So it's that awareness of that it is coming up, and then what the message is to tackle it. So this whole idea of maybe using the persistence to not give up. How did you eventually override this idea of that you weren't good enough because there wasn't enough going on? How did you get, like, did you get through that? And if so, how did you, like, how do we help people kind of recover or heal their shame?
Yeah, so I think a huge part of it was that mindfulness piece, really kind of reflecting back on what have I really accomplished here? Like maybe in this moment, I'm feeling lost. I don't know what the future holds, where my goals are going to take me, but what did I do to get here? And I kind of went back to that persistence and that like never giving up, and then realizing that I am that person. So I will keep trying. I will keep being persistent, keep kind of trying to meet my goals wherever that takes me, taking new chances, taking new risks. Like if people had to ask me a couple years ago, I didn't see myself being in something like KG and Associates, like right out of graduating, starting something with you, Karen. Like it's honestly, I'd say has built my confidence so much. And that's really that persistence that keeps going. Like even between us and our work, there's so much growth every day that it's like you need that push. You need to I think I kind of just give myself that gentle push each day where it's like, okay, tomorrow's a new day. What am I going to learn? Where am I going to grow? And I do see like that confidence just building and slowly kind of finding my path. And a lot of it was that self-talk piece, honestly, personally for me.
Yeah.
Um, and the people around me, it was that constant like support I was getting, that motivation where people would literally tell me like, okay, pause for a second, you just finished your master's, you've been in the working field since you graduated, why are you so hard on yourself? Like you will get to where you need to be. And then like hearing all that and kind of taking those own self affirmations was really what brought me. And I won't say that like it's like my wounded self never comes up, of course it does, like there are still times where like it creeps up, but then I'll just kind of pause again and be like, no, like, you know, bring that self affirmation back, bring that positive self talk back. And I think that's something that's really worked for me.
Yeah, yeah, listen, what I'm hearing you say, right? Support is key. Even if we just have one person in our life that we trust, I think this is what, the theory tells us. We need at least one secure attachment. And whether that's a family, a friend, a coworker, like whoever that one person is, to give us that baseline, to give us that inner security. So having people be our cheerleaders, right?
Yes.
To give us a reality check. Obviously the self-talk is key because we still believe that until we think differently, we don't feel differently, we don't do
Mm-hmm.
differently. And but what I love the most about what I just heard you say was this gentle push, right? And it's this little bit that we do every day because of course the wounded self is kind of hanging out in the corner just waiting to jump in. So it's that little bit of meditation or mindfulness we do every day to figure out what to do with that voice. And it is that kind of what we talk about in the meditations, that balance,
Mm-hmm.
gentle and power, that there's gentleness in the power, there's power in the gentleness. Because I think gentleness kind of implies self-compassion, that we can be easy on ourselves.
Yes.
So yeah, and so as we roll into 2023, all of those are so important, it seems, for you, around persistence, around being kind of connected with the not good enoughness, and how to kind of have those gentle pushes, the support,
Mm-hmm.
the self-talk, and the persistence all kind of working together. Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's interesting you said the word perfection. I don't know. We just seem to also come up against that so much. I think the two are connected. I think
Yes.
where there is shame, there is perfectionism. Some people with shame go to the other end of the continuum where they're reckless and
Mm-hmm.
unconforming. But more often than not, we see people striving for perfection as some, validation that we're good enough.
Yes.
So I had, a thrilling year, and then, the last month has been fraught with all kinds of issues and different things that happened that I didn't expect. That in some ways broke the perfect year. Oh my God, I was having
Yes.
a perfect year until this. And yeah, so for me, that was growth, right? Inevitably was about, um, what that roller coaster meant for me, because I can get so excited when things are going so well and it's
Yes.
perfect, and I'm riding this perfect, place. And then life kind of comes in and the universe delivers us some imperfections. And so for me, it was about finding the resilience, and feeling that even though things were happening that were painful or surprising or unexpected, how do I not let it undo this previous perfect chapter? And it was just a great reminder to me about, the imperfections of life,
Mm-hmm.
and that, it's kind of like what Brene Brown says about joy, that we are most vulnerable when we're letting ourselves have that joy, knowing that it may not last, knowing that
Yes.
things might change, but to not let that take away from our joy. So somehow I had to figure out how to integrate the last month of what seemed like one thing after another going wrong, and not let that take away all the joy of the first 11 months of the year,
Yes.
or 10 months of the year, and to kind of find a way to roll with it. So I did deep meditation, I had the benefit of going to the Sahara Desert in June, and we got into the camp, and I just dropped everything and ran out to the sand dunes. I couldn't believe the expanse that was there. And I went to the top of one dune and I just kind of sat there. And I didn't even plan this, but what came to me was sometimes when you're back at home, you get pulled into all of these stressful
Yes.
craziness, and it's not worth it. Like it just, like it honestly, Janice, it just like came to me. So when
Yeah.
I was going through all these frustrations in November, I, at one point, luckily, I had journaled that meditation. And I was literally sitting in my living room and one night, and I'm like, I don't know how to feel with this. I don't know what to do with this. I pick up my phone, and there was my meditation from the sand dune.
Mhm.
And I literally, like, I don't think I cried. I think I just like laughed out loud, but it was one of those like aha moments.
Yeah.
So that was it for me. The idea that it was a reminder that imperfections don't take away our joy
Yes.
if unless we let it, and how to kind of maintain the resilience of joy or the vulnerability of joy, and somehow integrate the imperfections without wiping
Mhm.
it all out, you know? And
Yeah,
it's
no, I
still
love that.
active. Like I'm still actively working this through. I'm still feeling wounded from the last month, but
Yes.
it's a work in progress. So I know what I want to take from this year into next year. One is the mindfulness of the skydive and how I
Mhm.
did that. And two, I'm working through this balance of perfect, not perfect, and how to kind of embrace the imperfections without wiping out the joys, right? So it's personal, right? Like
Yes.
everybody will have their stories from 2022 and what to take forward. And so I feel like that is like overlapping with this whole idea of resolutions, but yet it just means so much more, don't you think?
Absolutely. Like I'm honestly really loving this conversation, and it's gotten kind of me to think about it in a new way too. Like if like you summarize, like if I have, this is what I'm taking, kind of that persistence and never giving up, but also like being aware of like those feelings of not being good enough, and then really being mindful of it. And that's kind
Right.
of like now in this conversation, as I go into like this long vacation where I'm kind of just like, getting away, rejuvenating, I like to call it.
Yeah,
I'm
for
gonna
sure.
come back with the new year taking this. So I really like, I'm happy we did this,
Yeah, me
and
too.
spoke about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for any of our listeners out there, I guess this is going to be called, why resolutions don't work. But yeah, maybe for anybody who's listening to us on this podcast, maybe it invites you as well to think about taking stock of 2022 at a heart level, um, being proud of the moments that you think you were at your best, or what you proved to yourself you can do, and how you did it, and what that means for taking into 2023, to be on the lookout for building more of those moments, but also having the peace and ability to sit with the pain
Mhm.
and go one level deeper on what that all meant and what that invites you to do differently as an or better or from a stronger place moving forward. I think those are the elements that actually get us closer to what we really want, so we can take full advantage of that benchmark date, January 1. So well,
Yeah, I think it also takes away that pressure component of it. Um, like I said, like in that 1 month where you place all this pressure, now it's not so much pressure because you're really being mindful of what went well in the past year. What am I taking forward to learn from? So it kind of has that like balance. Like I said, you kind of tune into your heart. It
yeah,
removes that mind pressure where you're only thinking from your mind and placing like these resolutions.
yeah, because then the pressure's too great. We end up sabotaging it somehow, and then we feel worse for it not working. And then, yeah, it's just
Yes.
no way to live. So, well, Janice, happy New Year. I'll see you next
Thank you.
year. Have safe travels. I'm so thrilled that you have this opportunity, and it's been a great year for KG and Associates. And I can only imagine what we've got coming down the pipe for next year in terms of the work we do with children and also our integrated systemic approach for families. So have a great time off, and I'll see you next year.
Thanks, you too, Karen.